first speaker will be Wassim. And
hey, folks.
Hello. Yeah, hello. How are you? How are you, by the way? How are you?
I'm
fine,
doing
great.
Yeah, doing fine. Doing
Yeah,
completely
you
fine.
have a very great hat, you know.
Yeah, see that? All right,
Yeah.
watch this. Has lights.
Oh, fun. Oh, that's fun. That's real fun. Okay. Okay. So yeah, let's play this game. I hope that the audience will also try to guess. So I will guess, and maybe I will listen to.
I hope.
So you can write the answers. By the way, I just forget to mention that. You can write the answers. Some of the subscribers, you can write the answers in the chat, so I will see them and will announce them. So yeah, let's start.
All right, cool. So I tell the 3 facts, right?
Yeah,
All of
you
them.
just
Okay.
need to tell 3 facts.
So yeah, I wrote them down. So the first fact about me is I used to be a break dancer when I was young. Like I was doing b-boys, kind of stuff. So that's the first one. The second one is I speak a couple of languages, and one of them is Japanese. So I speak Japanese. That's another fact.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
that's very difficult language to.
Yeah, and that's a Manikiniko is my Twitter handle, and that's actually a Japanese word.
Okay.
That wasn't the fact. That was something else. And the third fact about me is I used to be a DJ when I was when I was a student.
Okay.
So yeah, 3 facts about me. 2 are true and 1 is a lie.
Okay, let me think. I think that about the language, it's true. I think so. And I think that. Let me choose which one. Breakdancer or DJ? Breakdancer or DJ? Breakdancer or DJ? DJ. Let me DJ. Is a good one. So, and the breakdancer is false. Is it right?
So should I give you the answers?
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, I used to be DJ, when I was a student. So that was like part-time job, and when I was a kid, I used to be b-boy, like doing breakdance. But I don't speak Japanese.
Oh my God!
I speak English, French, Arabic, but not Japanese.
Not Japanese. Okay, I see. But that was I tried it. Yeah, almost everything.
Yeah, you get one correct.
One correct. Yeah. Okay. So I will add your presentation. So yeah. So. At the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A session, so where we will discuss several questions from the audience, and I have also mine. So yeah, we'll speak a bit. And right now, rock the stage. Go. Right. I will hide myself.
Let's start.
Good.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is actually my first time here virtually with you guys at the GDG Minsk. And and this is also my last event for 2020. So thank you for this invitation. So our talk today would be about the kind of new era of static websites or static web apps. And I'm going to walk you through during this talk across different periods that we had in the web ecosystem. And then we will end the talk by explaining what is actually this new era, how can you build a modern static website or static web app, and what kind of tools you could use in order to accomplish this. So before that, as I said, let's get back in time a couple of decades back and talk about the first iteration of the web, which was called the Web 1.0. So back in the days, like the first use case of the web was document, where like people used to, not people, like scientists maybe, or like folks used to create static pages, HTML pages with links and a couple of form elements. and they were used actually to share scientific papers and view document online, static documents online, and use links to navigate between those documents. And when it comes to the backend, like when they needed some of logic from the backend, they actually we used what we call CGI, and then one of the technologies that were used back then in the backend was Perl. So we used to use Perl to create dynamic HTML pages that were then served back to the client for each request. And this looks kind of like this, simple, really basic HTML content. And then the client, gets that page and then render it simply. They were like really like few CSS, maybe no CSS at all, and no JavaScript. And then the interaction with the backend used like simple actions attributes on the form elements, and they basically called another CGI script. Here is it's Perl, and get a response. And then the Perl backend would process this post request using really simple logic, I would say. So the web 1.0 was kind of simple. The browser requests, the browser requests a document from the server, and then the server either gets, returns a static page or a dynamic page created thanks to CGI or common get interface. And then comes in the new web back then, Web 2.0. Actually, that's the web I knew when I started like professionally working as a web developer. I started in this era of the Web 2.0 and this kind of graphics. I don't know if you remember that. The era of Ajax and what we used to call web applications, and even the fancier, design, the UI with like real, like kind of real world, design elements. Actually, this site, I built this site. This is my first site I've ever built. It was a static HTML and JavaScript and vanilla JavaScript and CSS. It used like some simple Ajax techniques to lazy load HTML fragments when the user navigates on different sections from the menu. It was fun to do. It was fun to build. Really easy using like simple code editor and deploying it thanks to FTP back then. But the real innovation came from, I would say, apps like Google Maps and Gmail, which were really using the Ajax technology. And then this is where we started talking about single page applications, or SPAs, because we then could interact with the page, with a static page. And then here, for instance, for Google Maps, we could like navigate through the map without refreshing the page. All the interaction, all the the data, the resources were requested thanks to Ajax, and like were fetched on the background by the client, and no page refreshes. So the kind of model was looking like this. So we had the browser with the UI, so the user interacted with the UI, and then if we needed some data without refreshing the page, we then used Ajax and JavaScript and Ajax in order to request the JSON or XML or whatever format, exchange format we would use. And then on the server, we had the API server that's communicating with a kind of database, maybe. Just give me a second here. All right. All right, cool. You won't see my face for now. So you would probably just hear me talk about this. And then comes in the next iteration of the web, which was the web 3.0, which basically was the web, what we call the web of data. I don't know if you've knew that era was really quick. This came actually from Sir Tim Berners-Lee, who actually began talking about the semantic web as the web 3.0. And then the World Wide Web Consortium, W3C, started promoting this kind of semantic web. Basically, this web, the purpose of this web was to try and connect pages, like servers or machines to machines together, like trying to expose data, and data would be accessed by another machine or on another server, instead, comparing to like a client server request. Basically, the semantic web aims at converting the existing web that was dominated by unstructured or semi-structured documents into something that we call web of data, through exposing APIs and also things like RDF, which is resource description framework, I guess. So that was the kind of history of the web. And yeah, my name is Wassim Chegham. I work as a JavaScript developer, or my role is a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, and I'm focused on JavaScript. So my focus is JavaScript community and the JavaScript tooling, and trying to help the JavaScript developers be successful with the tools and services that we provide. And also, I'm trying to advocate for those developers here internally at Microsoft in order to improve our services and even like create content for a JavaScript community, and those kind of content and resources. And today my talk is about the new era of static web apps. So what is actually a static web app? Like I've been talking about this a couple of times now. So a static web app, or SWA, I like to call it a SWA, it's shorter, is actually just a traditional SPA with some kind of superpowers. All right, static web apps are fast to load, they are fast to render, fast to use, and they could probably use some serverless backend, like a kind of API. So they're fast to load because they're static. They're basically served as a static CSS, static JavaScript, and static HTML. Hopefully there's nothing rendered on the client side. Everything is rendered on the server. Yeah, and that's why they're also fast to render, because the client doesn't have to parse a lot of JavaScript in order to create HTML fragments on the client. And they're fast to use also because they're minimum JavaScript load when the user starts to interact with the user. Because the page starts really fast, the TTI is really small, and then the user would quickly get the resource they requested and interact with it. And on the serverless, so I don't know if you're familiar with the serverless concept, but it's basically just using some API on the backend that are easily scalable, elastic, scalable. They're you pay only for what you use in terms of resources. And yeah, there are lots of benefits. I'm not gonna dive deep in this talk about serverless, but this combining static with serverless would give you this new kind of superpowers to your static apps. So how do you create the front end, the UI of your static app? Well, basically with any modern JavaScript or no JavaScript at all technology, using basic HTML, CSS. But you could also use any existing framework like Angular, Vue, or any kind of static site generator like Gatsby or Eleventy or Jekyll. All those kind of frameworks, JavaScript frameworks, they are kind of compatible with this new paradigm. So I tried to summarize the how to say this, the actual model of how is like a simple or a classic static web app is structured. So you have the browser again, which shows or renders the static site, and then obviously the static content is loaded from a static, let's say CDN or any kind of storage. And then when it comes to interaction, when it comes to fetching data and showing data to the users, you could use JavaScript and Ajax and fetch those from serverless API, which obviously on the serverless side, you could access any resources like a database or another server or whatever you want. So you have no limitations for that. There are also other stuff that features, other features that are provided by different tools. And for today, I'm going to focus on this kind of new service that we're working on at Microsoft, which is called Azure Static Web Apps. So Azure Static Web Apps basically allows developers to focus on their code, on the logic they're building, or the feature they'll build in, and it would take care of different configurations, automations and stuff like that. Like, for instance, it would automate the build, it would also automate the deployment, and also automate the hosting of your static content. It gives you out-of-the-box authentication and authorizations with ACL and roles. So I'll give you some examples afterwards. And it also, if you want, you can plug in it easily a serverless API thanks to Azure Functions. This Azure Static Web App new service would actually connect to your GitHub project and automatically, or I would say automagically, create a GitHub action for you that you, of course, you could configure afterwards, but it automatically create that GitHub action, and which would listen for any commit or changes on your main branch or any incoming pull request, and then trigger the build and any build pipeline that you have if you're running test, end-to-end test, or any kind of special pipeline, and then deploy that content and gives you a URL where you can preview your changes. You could also and easily and freely customize your domain by using your own custom domain instead of the one that get generated for you. And you get SSL for free, and which gets renewed every year. And it's also scalable and geo-distributed, so your users could access the service really quickly wherever they are. I mentioned quickly the authentication. So Azure Static Web Apps provides you with this service really easily. And by that, I mean you simply and literally just have to use these URLs in your app. So for instance, if you want to add support for login, like allow your users to log in using their GitHub account or their Twitter account, just point them to this URL, and then they would connect with their let's say Twitter account, and then you would get redirected back to your application with a token, which then you can use and access other resources using that token. Next, we have I will try to explain how the typical Azure Static Web Apps flow works, which basically what I just described earlier, but here a more like visual way. So we as developers, we create code, we create features for our projects and our applications, and then we submit pull request against the main branch. So this pull request, the code that is submitted by this pull request, would then get tested, built, and deployed thanks to the GitHub workflow, GitHub action that get got created by Azure Static Web Apps service. And then the static content would be deployed and hosted on the service. And if you have an API backend, that is completely optional. But if you have one, this API would also be, built if you're using TypeScript or another technology, tested wherever you have as a custom pipeline, and then deployed on Azure. And then, if you're using authentication or authorization, this is out of the box. This is coming by default by the service. Just one clarification: if you're using authorizations and ACL, you would have to do an extra step from the Azure portal, where you would define the roles that you're using in your app, and then once a user is connected, is logged to your app, obviously with the same email address, so they would automatically get those roles applied to their session. And then you access your newly deployed application on a secure domain. So typically, when you're using and developing or creating, let's say, when you were creating a Azure Static Web App instance, you would be typically using some tools. So if you are a VS Code fan or enthusiast, there is an extension. There's a VS Code extension for the service that's already available, and you could use it. And there is a built-in wizard that walks you through all the configuration that you need to have in order to set up the service with your existing application. Also, you could do the same thing from the Azure portal, obviously, if you're more of a point-and-click person. And if you're a CLI fan, like me, there is a CLI experience. So you could use Azure CLI in order to create and deploy your Azure Static Web App configurations. And we're working on something actually for the GA, which is a local emulator experience. So that's actually an open source project where you would be able to have the same experience that you have on the cloud, but locally, in order, not the same, I would say, a similar experience. So you would be able to really debug and try your code before deploying it. So if I want to summarize the whole experience using Azure Static Web Apps, you would typically access your domain from any browser or any client. Then you would have access the browser. You have the UI as before. The UI would the website would be loaded from storage, from distributed storage near your users. For any other data and resources, there is a serverless API if you deployed one, if you need it, so you could deploy it easily with the service. And of course, and obviously, you would access any data database or any other resources on the cloud through that serverless API, or maybe other serverless APIs if you have more. And when it comes to authentication, this is also provided by default, and this basically use other provider. It uses other public providers, whether it be like GitHub, Twitter, Google, Azure Directory, and Facebook, and probably more coming. So the green section here is your Azure Static Web App instance, and the blue section here is your Azure Cloud instance. So basically, you can access any resources in that area from your serverless API. All right, so that was the complete I would say pitch for the service. Excuse me, I need to get some water. so that you can use and try starting from today. The service is in preview right now, but you can already use it for free. There is a free plan. Yeah, use it, try some apps, try to deploy your apps, and please tell us about your experience and you have some issues or anything that you think missing. I have prepared a couple of demo apps that applications that I built myself. So the first one here is this one is using should be loaded here. It's using a simple authentication process that's provided by Azure Static Web Apps. So what I'm doing here is I will be logging with my GitHub account, and then I would get the user information and show it to you as inside like a beautiful card with some statistics. So logging in here, I was forwarded to my GitHub account because I've already logged in before. So GitHub remembers that choice, and then it automatically forwarded me back to my actual website. And using that token that I got from GitHub, I was able to get my picture avatar and some information here about my account. Really simple. And of course, all of these applications that I'm showing you today are open source and available on my GitHub account, so you would be able to easily look at them after the talk. The next demo here, this one is using an API. So this one was really fun to build, actually. It's a cat name generator that I did last summer. So the front end is using Angular, and also the other application in the front end is using Angular. So it's built with Angular on the UI side, and on the backend side for this application for Catsify, I'm using actually a couple of different technologies. So the API, the serverless API, runs on Azure Functions, as I told you earlier. So it's using Node.js, and the logic actually so let me just request a cat name here. So here I got, for instance, materialistic curly. I know I can request maybe another one. It's completely random, so I don't control the randomness here. Shrill Porsche maybe. So these cat names are actually generated by Rust. So the logic that generate the cat names is written in Rust and compiled into WebAssembly. And this WebAssembly binary is then served by the Node.js thanks to Azure Functions. I hope you're following me here. But again, the code is available on GitHub. Please take some time and read it. And if you have any questions, please ping me on Twitter. I'll be happy to give you more details about this. So that's another example of an app that is deployed on Azure Static Web Apps. So again, the front end is user Angular, the back end there is a serverless API, and all the backend logic actually is also deployed thanks to Azure Functions and all the custom pipeline using Cargo for Rest and compiled to WebAssembly. All right, so that was it for today. These are 3 links that you could check after the talk, where basically they're put into the documentation. And we have like the second one there. It's a complete tutorial showing you how you can publish your Angular, React, or Svelte or Vue application with an API on Azure Static Web Apps. And also the third link here is a GitHub repo where we compiled a lot of really so many example applications that were deployed on Azure Static Web Apps. All right. So before I finish, I have just one quick request for you, because today I hope that you learned something new about Azure. So our friends from DevRel here, they're giving you actually these badges every time you accomplish something. So today you learn something, so they give you the learner badge. So if you scan this code bar, the first 25 people who scan this would get that badge. So there's a limitation to 25, the first ones, because this is built on top of some blockchain technology that I really don't understand. So there is some crypto stuff in it. So you could collect all those badges like Pokemons, and you could join actually a community following this AKS MS Azure Heroes link, where join the community and show off your badges that you collected. So I only have 4 of them, but actually there are like hundreds that you can collect. So feel free, join the community, and use your new badge. So yeah, thank you for having me. And if you have any question after the talk, please reach out to me at Manikiniko on Twitter. I'll be happy to provide you with any details about this talk or any other topic. Could be open source, could be DIY, IoT, whatever thing that you had in mind. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Wassim. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was quite detailed, and I hope that.
Sorry about my camera. I forgot to connect my USB power, so now I'm switched to my MacBook.
Okay. Yeah, we can see you right now. Yeah, I hope that it was not a big deal, but yeah, still.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Good. So right now we have a Q&A session, yes, and there is like several questions in the chat. So let me show you the question.
Cool.
So the first question is, how do you debug a static app locally?
All right. So as I mentioned in actually this slide, let me show it to you, where on the tool inside. So we are actually will be providing an emulator experience. So you could use that emulator here to run your application locally, and have like kind of same experience. You won't have the whole experience obviously, but you would be able to run your app locally as if it's running on the cloud session, and then you would probably use if you're using VS Code, you would set breakpoints in your Node.js code, and then run your app locally, and then debug your code before deploying your app.
Okay.
So that would be possible thanks to the emulator, which would also support authentication, serving your static content, the API as well, and probably more features that we're working on.
Okay, good. So, and the next question from the same user is, do we have a special serverless standards like Aus or Twilio?
I don't understand the question. What do you mean by serverless standards?
Serverless standards.
So I don't understand the question, but I see that they're talking about Auth0 and Twilio. So for now, to my knowledge, there is no integration with Auth0 and Twilio for the time being. But I don't speak for the team who's working on the product. But I don't know. They might be more stuff coming soon, but for now on the serverless side, we only support Azure Functions. And of course, from your Azure function, you could connect to a Twilio account or an Auth0 session. And by the way, just let me try it, but I'm not sure it's gonna work because I haven't tried it yet. I'm going back to my demo here, just log out, and I have like a hidden feature. When I hit Shift, you see the login button changes.
Yeah.
So when it's orange, I would probably be able to connect with Auth0, but again, I haven't tried it yet. So let me click on the button, and it might not work. All right. So you see here, it connected it for like forwarded me to my Auth0 application demo that I created myself. I can't remember my password, but let me connect with my GitHub account here, and you see, it was working. So I connected to GitHub not through Azure Static Web Apps, but instead I used Auth0 as a provider. And I get the same data obviously, so that means it's working. So you could thanks to Azure Functions, you could actually use any API that you're already using.
Okay. And there is like a question or note. I would like to confirm if all Azure functions are non-blocking and does not affect the core web vitals.
I would like to confirm if all Azure functions are non-blocking. Again, I'm sorry, I don't understand the non-blocking issue here, but I mean, you as a developer, you are responsible of writing the code. So if you write a blocking code, your Azure function would block. But if you're writing non-blocking code, which you would be doing if you're doing Node.js, you would be using our like async functionalities of Node.js in order to not block the experience. Yeah, I would love to have more feedback or more context about this question. If this person can reach me out on Twitter, yeah, please, reach out to me on Twitter and give me more context so I can probably give you a more clear response. But again, usually, I mean, if you write your code, Node.js code as like standard Node.js code, it's supposed to be like, it should be non-blocking. When your Node.js server gets a request, you should handle that request in a non-blocking manner, I would say. And of course, I mean, if you need to request another service that is going to be blocking whatever, then you might need to review your architecture, because yeah, the thing that you should not be doing is to block the server. Otherwise, the UI would be still waiting for a response. Yeah.
True. Okay. So I hope that we answered all the questions. And if you missed something, please go to the Twitter. I will just I'll leave the Twitter of Wassim Twitter. Just let me couple.
And I will also share the slides on Twitter. Just after the talk right now.
Here's the link to the Twitter of Wassim. So I posted it in the chat, so you can go and try to write if we missed something, or if we do not understand, or
where to find me.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so thank you for your presentation and for your time. Yeah, it was really great. I hope that we covered lots of things and somebody found something interesting and new for them. So but we have to go further.
Of course, yeah.
And have to say goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you for your time. Yeah.